You are listening to an episode of the Pour Over podcast. God may be writing your story, but the chapters in between can be messy and hard to figure out. This podcast is a place for listeners to be encouraged, built up, and poured into so we can go out and pour into others. We discuss real topics that Christians face in their everyday lives, from foundations of faith to honestly just figuring it out. Thank you for tuning in. Let's get into it. What is up? What is up? Welcome to another episode of the Pour Over podcast. If you are new here, I just want to say thank you so much for tuning in and for finding this podcast. I truly hope and pray and believe that you will be blessed by it. My name is Kyla. I'm the host of the podcast, and I post episodes every Tuesday. Like I said in the intro, we talk about everything on this pod, just honestly everything that Christians go through in our everyday lives. And my goal is to really encourage you and to build you up in your faith. And so you can not only grow in your faith, but also so you can take that and pour into other people and really spread the gospel and encourage people in their faith as well. Like I said, I post episodes every Tuesday morning. Make sure you subscribe or follow the podcast wherever you are listening from. You can also follow the podcast Instagram. It is at the Pour Over Pod. You will see a lot of yellow and my smiling face, but I am just so glad you decided to click on this episode. If you are not new to the podcast and you are a loyal member of the Pop Fam, thank you so much for being here. I truly appreciate every single one of you that tunes in week after week. You guys are my fam, and I love you so much. Today, we are talking about feeling called but insecure. There are a lot of us who do feel God's call on our lives, and we know that there's something God is putting on our hearts and there's something He wants for us, but we can let insecurity get in the way. We might feel like God has given us certain gifts or abilities, or we feel the Lord leading us in a certain direction, but we begin to let our thoughts get to us and we think things like, wait, me? Like, why me? Why would the Lord ask me to do this? I'm not worthy. I can't do it. And we begin to just give into that self talk that we feed ourselves, and that can often hinder us from what the Lord is calling us to do. And so today I really want to kind of dive into that feeling because I'm sure it's something that a lot of us feel and a lot of us deal with and go through. And it's probably not something that we all want to admit to or talk about. No one wants to say, like, I absolutely feel the call of the Lord on my life, but I'm so painfully insecure that I have zero belief that it could actually happen. Nobody wants to say that. No one wants to admit that they're insecure, but we are. Everybody gets insecure about different things. And so today, I really just want to dive into that feeling, talk about someone in the Bible who even went through that as well, and kind of just navigate what it's like to feel called but insecure and where we can go from that. Now, feeling called but also insecure, it could really refer to so many things. Just as an example, you could be considering leading a small group, or maybe you're feeling the tug to start your own Bible study, or you're thinking, there's no way that I can lead people. There's no way that people could trust me and look to me. Or maybe you're thinking about joining the worship team or taking, that next step in your job, and you're thinking, there's so many other people who could do this instead of me and they're so much better. Or maybe you want to branch out and you want to go on a missions trip with your church, but you find yourself thinking, what talents do I have that I could bring to a missions team? Like, I don't know how to plant food. I don't know how to build a house. There are things that the Lord may be putting on your heart to do or to pursue, and yet we let our own thoughts about ourselves, honestly, not about anyone else or even about God or his abilities. It's our thoughts about ourselves that keep us from seeing the plans that God has for us come to fruition. And it really can be such a frustrating tug of war in your heart, because on one hand, you feel like you're really hearing the Lord's voice for something. And sometimes, you're even praying about it and you're getting that confirmation that it is from the Lord and that he wants you to do something and you know where he wants you to go. But on the other hand, you begin to start thinking all those things about yourself, that you're just not good enough, that you don't have what it takes, that you're just not going to be able to do it, that you could try, but you're going to fail. And honestly, sometimes we even get too practical and we begin to think, well, logistically, how is this supposed to work? How am I supposed to work this out and figure out these details? And, how would I even begin? And then in that sense, we almost begin to think that it's up to us to make things happen. And we think that everything has to be done in our own strength. And we begin putting the possibility and the likelihood of seeing that dream come true on ourselves, and we put all the pressure on ourselves, and we begin thinking that it has to be done from our own strength, when in reality it's not about us at all. But we will get into that a little bit later. But these kinds of thoughts can be so hard to overcome. At kind of just starts out as like one thought, and then the more you think about it and the more you give into it, the more the thoughts just keep coming, and then they can continue to just taunt us, and ultimately they can keep us from branching out, from trying something new, and from pursuing what we feel the Lord is calling us to. I do want to share a personal example. I'll actually share another one as well later on, but I do want to share a personal example from me about a time when I felt like the Lord was definitely wanting me to step into something, but I was really insecure about it. When I joined the youth team and became a small group leader, I did not think I was qualified. And all of you guys that know me personally now, you know that I love youth. I love youth ministry. I love seeing young people fall in love with Jesus and have that community. It's beautiful. I love it. But when they asked me to join the city youth team, I was like, there's literally no way you want me to do this. I just graduated high school and I was only like a year or two older than the students that I was leading. It felt super weird to be freshly graduated and to be leading juniors and seniors in high school when I was basically their age. And even still, I also was not ever really a youth student. I think I was for like a few weeks before I graduated. And that was kind of a fluke because of all things that happened in 2020. And that's the year that I graduated. But I was never really a part of a youth ministry. And so I didn't even know what youth nights looked like. I had no clue what a youth ministry was supposed to look like. I had no clue what leadership was supposed to look like in youth ministry. And so all of that combined, I did not feel qualified, but I was really excited about it and I wanted to do it. And so I just kind of said yes, even though I didn't really feel like I had very much experience in anything really, certainly nothing of value for these girls to learn from. But I felt like I was still learning, but I just said yes. And even though I felt unqualified, I just took that next step and I said, well, I'm here and I'm available, and teach me and show me how to become a youth leader. And so I did that. And then a couple years in, so I started out as a high school girls leader, and that was my thing. I was like, oh my gosh, I just graduated high school. I totally know how to talk to these girls about high school. But a couple years in, they asked me to become a middle school girls leader. And that I did not feel right for at all. I thought I was probably the last person that they should ask. And I knew that they were going to ask me because younger students oftentimes click with younger leaders who have like that same kind of energy. And I was one of the younger ones on the team. I had a lot of energy. And so I think in their minds, they were like, oh my gosh, this is like a natural fit. I did not think that it was a natural fit. I did not think that I was the right person for the job. I had zero clue how to connect with junior hires at the time. I was like, I'm used to talking to my students about driving, getting their licenses, sports in high school, prom, stuff like that. I don't know how to be a middle schooler. I don't remember that. I'm 18, 19, 20 years old now. I have no clue how to connect with a 12-year-old. But I said yes. And honestly, it did feel like a really whole new ball game. Middle schoolers are very different from high schoolers. If you spend time with youth students at all in those ages, I feel like for the most part they are pretty different. There's definitely some similarities. They definitely can still connect with each other. We love encouraging our high school students to connect with our junior high students, but there are plenty of differences. And I honestly felt like I just could not get them the way that I got the older girls. And honestly, if I'm being completely honest with you guys, they scared me. Like, I was intimidated by them. I just did not think that I could ever connect with them in the way that I needed to or in the way that I wanted to. You know, I wanted to get to know these girls. I wanted to be a good leader. I wanted to be there for them, but I just felt like there was a wall between the two of us. And it was really hard for me to develop that relationship at first with these girls. And I started to have these thoughts that really influenced the way I saw myself as a leader. And I began to think that, man, if I hadn't already built that connection, then I never could. And if I wasn't seeing, the impact of my leadership and their experience in youth already, then it's never going to happen. And I honestly began to think that they were just better off with someone else. I was thinking that I was just a failure at leadership and that they could have any other leader that would probably be more qualified and better suited to lead them. And I compared myself to other leaders, and I really believed that I could not be the leader that they needed me to be. And it made me question a lot about my leadership abilities in general because, a good leader should not ideally just be able to stick to one specific group. Like, in order to lead people, like, you're going to have so many different people. And for me, I was like, well, if I can't lead middle schoolers and I can only lead high schoolers, like, what is it that is not clicking for me with these kids that I'm trying to have a connection with, and I just feel like I'm just not the right leader for them, and I just feel like there's just something about me, and I like I said, I really started comparing myself, and I was like, "Oh, I'm too old, I'm not cool, it's the way I dress, it's the music I listen to, it's the way I talk, like I'm just not cool to middle schoolers." And so I really began comparing myself and putting myself down. And that was really difficult for me, and I really struggled for a long time feeling like I just was not the leader I needed to be, and I knew the Lord wanted me to be their leader for a reason, but I was just so insecure in my own doubts and my own thoughts about myself that I just thought I couldn't do it. But something that I really wanna touch on is that this feeling of being called but still insecure, it's not unfamiliar to people in the Bible as well. Sometimes I think that we forget that the people in the Bible, like they're not fictional people. They're not fairy tales. Like everything in the Bible is true. And so every person in the Bible that walked through things that we read about, that was a legitimate struggle. They were real people with real struggles and real problems. And the one that I specifically want to focus on today is Moses. I have learned a lot from Moses' leadership. I was doing a Bible study and like a devotional about his life the past month or month and a half or so. And it really opened my eyes to a lot of the leader that Moses was in his strengths and in his weaknesses. And it really revealed a lot to me about him. But something that I think is really interesting about Moses, now, before I get started, I do want to point out, like, if you are thinking, who the heck is Moses? Who are you talking about? He's, for the most part, I would say Moses is pretty well known in the Bible. But if you have never read about him before, he was the man that led the Israelites out of Egypt. So the Israelites were in slavery in Egypt, and he was the one that led them out of slavery and led them in. Well, he didn't end up going to the promised land, but he led them to where they would hope eventually. You have to read it, okay? I encourage you, read Exodus, okay? But anyways, Moses was the one that led the Israelites out of Egypt from their bondage in Egypt. But before he led them out of Egypt, he was just your average guy, and his upbringing and his backstory is actually pretty fascinating. But but when he became a husband and he got a job, and I believe he had children as well, he was just an ordinary guy. And then God spoke to him, and he called Moses to help set his people free. And do you want to know what Moses said when the Lord called him? He said no. He said no. He said, not me. Wrong guy. And he actually told God no multiple times. So it wasn't just like no, I don't think so. It was like literally no. Who are you talking to? Wrong guy. Like he even brought up his brother Aaron. He was like, Aaron's skilled in this area a lot more than I am. You picked the wrong dude. Like I don't know what you're thinking, Lord, but it should not be me. And it's because he really didn't think he could do it. He made all these excuses. He brought up all these reasons to the Lord why God should not choose him to be the leader that takes the Israelites out of slavery from Egypt. He said, I'm a nobody. I don't know what to say. I'm a bad speaker. They're not going to believe me. All these things. And honestly, I would say they're pretty valid fears, especially considering Moses he was just a guy. He was just a guy. And he was living an ordinary life, and he had different things that, or I would say he had different struggles that I'm sure, wanted to improve in before he became the leader of the Israelite nation, taking them out of bondage and slavery from Egypt. So, I can totally understand why he would have those fears. And, when taking up a leadership position like that, it can be really scary when you feel like you don't have the qualifications to do something like leading a whole nation into deliverance from Egypt. And so, a big part of this too would be speaking to the people and speaking to Pharaoh. And if he's not a good speaker, then I could totally understand his fear. But the beautiful thing is that God didn't define Moses by his struggles, he defined Moses by his potential. And he saw what Moses could be, and he saw what Moses could do, and that is why he called him. It had nothing to do with his qualifications. It had nothing to do with whether or not he was a good speaker or whether or not, the people would believe him. It was all to do with the fact that God saw the potential in Moses, and that is why he called him. And it's exactly the same thing for us. And so God told Moses over and over again that if he just said yes, he would be with him. And he was. He was with Moses every step of the way. Each time that Moses relied on God and trusted him to provide, God showed up. And, I know that God does that for a lot of us. He's done it for me. Yes, it was really hard for me at first to connect with these middle school students, and I did let it affect the way I saw myself as a leader. But you know what? Honestly, I just trusted the Lord to equip me and to give me the courage to step up and keep trying and keep making that effort and to lead differently. I couldn't be the same leader I was years before. I had to adapt and I had to adjust and I had to make an effort with what would work for these students. And so I asked the Lord to show me how to connect with them. And honestly, we ended up having such a good relationship. A lot of those girls are sophomores or freshmen in high school now. And some of them still reach out to me and still call me when they want to hang out or when they need money. But that's besides the point. Um, it's crazy because a lot of those girls I met when they were going into sixth grade, and now they're sophomores and driving, and I still have that relationship with them. And some of them are even still my small group students. And it's just a beautiful thing to see how God shows up for you and how God can come through and meet every need and provide what you're lacking. And that's really the cool thing, is that it's not about your skills. It's about God meeting your need. Like whatever it is that you are lacking, whatever you think it is makes you not qualified to do that thing that you feel like the Lord is leading you to, that's where God is going to show up. And it's so cool because like all of this ultimately points back to him and to his glory. It's all for his glory, but it's just so neat how wherever it is we're lacking, whatever it is we need, God's like, that's the hole I'm going to fill. That's where I'm going to be. That's where you're going to see just how good I am. And so today, I don't know, maybe you're feeling that call or that tug, but you just can't get past the thought that you're not good enough or that you're going to fail. But here's what I want you to know. This is really kind of the point of what it is I'm trying to say. And I know that this episode is probably going by a little bit fast. But my thoughts are just so clear about all of this. But what I really want you to know is that it's not about you. It's not about your gifts and abilities. It's not about what you can do. It's about what God can do in you. It's about what he can do through you. There's a phrase that I love and I really hold on to it. It's God does not call the qualified. He qualifies the called. If I'm being completely honest, you're probably not qualified to do whatever it is God is asking you to do. And I only say that not to discourage you. I'm sure you have lots of gifts and skills and abilities, and I'm sure that there is something in you, like with Moses, that God sees that makes you right for whatever it is he's calling you to do. But God's plan is so much bigger and greater than anything we can even imagine. And we are absolutely going to need him in that. We are not going to be able to show up and do it all right and figure it all out and never make any mistakes. Because if we never made any mistakes, how would that point back to the Lord? Where would we be able to rely on God and see him come through and have it ultimately all be for his glory? If we could figure everything out on our own and do everything right and absolutely perfectly 100% of the time, we would not need God. But that is not the case. That's not the truth. That's not reality. We do need God, and there are going to be mistakes that we make. And that doesn't mean that, God made a mistake calling you. That doesn't mean that he didn't mean to call you. It's not like he accidentally sent you an acceptance letter and he meant to send it to somebody else. Like, God knows what he's doing when he's calling you to do something, and you are probably going to make mistakes. And there will be a time when you fail, but it's really all about growth and learning and still saying yes, because you will see God come through in that. And so, if you really believe that there is something that God wants for you, then you need to trust that he's going to give you what you need in order to do it. Trust that you won't be able to do it in your own strength, but that you will be able to do it through the strength that he gives you. Whatever it is, whether it's auditioning for the worship team, starting a small group, or flying across the world to speak to a certain people group, whatever it is that you are feeling today, that tug on your heart, that you really feel like the Lord is telling you to do, if God has put that on your heart, then he is going to give you what you need to do it. He's never going to put you in a situation to fail just so he can watch you fail. That's not God. That's not his heart. That's not his character. That's not his intention for us. Like, he has plans for our good, to prosper us and to give us hope in the future, not to watch us fail over and over again. He doesn't watch us flounder. He wants to watch us succeed, and he wants to show us how good he really is. And so if he's calling you to it, there is a reason for that, even if it doesn't make any sense to you. Just as another example in my life, at some point when I was leading, I got handed our youth hospitality team. And so that meant that every week, myself and a team of students were preparing a snack for 100 people every week, and trying to navigate that and staying under budget and preparing food that did not always work out well. And let me tell you, I was in no way, shape, or form qualified to do this at all. I do not cook. I can follow basic instructions and probably not mess it up, but that's about as far as I can go when it comes to cooking. I am not a chef. And honestly, I didn't even know if I had any hospitality skills inside of me. And I'd never led a serve team. And so there was literally no way, shape, or form that I would be prepared for this. But I said yes. And it did take a lot of trial and error and time, but it ended up becoming something that I loved and that I was so passionate about. And not only was I passionate about it, not only did I enjoy doing it, I had a vision for it. And that, I think, is such a transformation. Starting with, why are you asking me to do this? I don't want to do this. I feel kind of obligated to do it, so I guess I'll say yes, to actually leading a team, being excited about it, having fresh vision and purpose for the ministry as a whole. Guys, that is not where I started, but it's because of the Lord, and it's because I trusted in him, and I trusted that he would show up and give us what we needed, that I was able to get there. And it ended up becoming something that I really cared about so much. And it made us a stronger team. I got close to a lot of students that I don't even know if I would have a relationship with them if I hadn't been able to serve with them on that team. And I learned a lot about myself and about leading a serve team. And I honestly have no regrets. And that's probably not what I would have said when I started it, but I have no regrets, and it's not something that I expected or something I felt qualified for, but I trusted God to show up, and that's exactly what he did. And so I really want to encourage you to lean into that today. It might be something that you are not expecting, but if you feel a tug at your heart that God is calling you to do something, don't let your own mind hold you back. Don't put yourself in a box that you think you're supposed to stay in. Trust that God knows what he's doing. And if he's calling you to step out in boldness and do something different, he's going to equip you and ultimately be glorified through it all. And he's honestly not asking you to be prepared. He's not asking you it might not be something where you're like, "Oh my gosh, I've always dreamt of doing this." Like, it might be something completely out of the blue, like leading a hospitality serve team when the only thing you can cook is pasta, you know? So it might not be something that you know even how to do right away. It might be something that you have to figure out and learn through, but he just wants your yes. He's not asking you to have it all together. He's not asking you to be the best at it right away. He just wants you to say yes. You know, God can do a lot of things with a surrendered heart, but he can't do anything with an unwilling heart. And so if you're going to be stubborn and you're going to tell God no, then of course he's not going to be able to use you. But if you settle into trusting him and actually having faith that you will see him work through you, that you will see all that God can do, then chances are you will see God's promise fulfilled and you will see how you become transformed, how you become a whole new person because of whatever it is he's calling you to. And maybe you have gifts and abilities that you don't even know, that you can't even see yet, and the Lord sees those, and he sees, just like he did with Moses, he sees the potential in you and he wants to bring those things out of you and use them for his glory. So, yes, maybe today, God is calling you to something and you're not too sure about it, but I really want to encourage you to just put your heart out there. The beautiful thing about God is that you never have to fear putting yourself out there with him. Like, he is a safe place and he knows what he's doing and he's never going to make you fail. And so when you put your trust in him and you really surrender, you're going to see all that he can do with just your yes. I mean, it's scary for sure. It's not easy to branch out and to do something new, but if you think about it, even like saying yes to Jesus and giving our lives to him, I'm sure that felt a little scary and unknown at the time, but when you say yes to him, you just see all these beautiful things happen. And I mean, life is not always easy. It's not always perfect, but you still see just the endless goodness of God. But maybe when you first said yes to Jesus, you were like, listen, Lord, I'm really putting myself out there, but I'm just going to dive right in. I'm going to fall into you and I'm going to trust you, Lord. And it's the same thing with whatever it is he's calling you to do. Like, God sees things in you that you do not see in yourself. And that's because he is the Lord. And that's because he's our creator. He's our maker. He's our father. And he knows things about us that we don't even know about ourselves. And he sees our future and he sees all that we can be. And he genuinely wants the best for us. And he always has plans to prosper us and to grow us and for our good. And so I really just encourage you today, if you're listening to this and maybe it's something that you've been dreaming about forever, or maybe it's just a conversation you had with someone and they were like, hey, you should really do this thing. And you were like, oh, no, I don't think so. I'm not qualified to do that. I really want to encourage you, seek the Lord on that. And I'm not asking you to say yes right away because you're like, oh, Kyla told me to do it, so I'm going to say yes. Like, no, you need to think about it, but really seek the Lord on it. Like, it's honestly, it's not about whether or not you think you should do it. If it's something God wants you to do and you really feel like the Lord is pushing you to do this, then you need to just do it. And that's where, prayer comes in and spending time with him comes in. When you're seeking him and when you're seeking his voice and you're seeking his thoughts on something, you're not going to know how to hear from him if you've never heard from him before and if you don't spend time with him, like, you're not going to be able to recognize his voice if you never hear from him and if you never spend time with him. So I really want to encourage you, whatever it is that's on your heart today that you are wanting to start, that you're wanting to pursue, but you feel like, I just don't know, like, I just don't think I'm good enough to do this. Seek the Lord on it. Ask him to show you what you should do, and he will always make your path straight. He will always guide you to the right thing. So that's all I honestly have for you today. I know this probably felt a little bit quicker, at least comparatively speaking. You guys know, if you've been around for a while, that I can get on tangents and just talk, talk, talk. But this is something that I think so many of us deal with, and it's something I've dealt with in so many different scenarios. I mean, half the time I don't feel qualified to do anything that the Lord asks me to do, but I say yes and I'm like, okay, God, I'm going to say yes and I'm just going to hope you show up. But he always does because he's good and he's faithful and he keeps his promises and he loves us. And so, I mean, it's something that's real. It's a real thing. We might not feel qualified, we might not feel right, but ultimately the Lord knows best and he knows what he's doing with you. He knows what he's doing. He knows his plans for you. And so That's all I have for you today. I really hope that it encouraged you. I hope that today you can be reminded that it's not about your skills, your experience. It's really not about you at all. It's all about the Lord. And so I pray that you just let that encourage you to trust that God will make a way no matter what. If you loved this episode and you want to hear more like this, please leave a comment, subscribe, follow, rate the podcast, or even share it with a friend that you think needs to hear it. This podcast can only grow with your help. And the idea is for more and more people to be encouraged in their faith and to grow and be poured into. So, honestly, anything you can do helps me, it helps the podcast, and it helps share the good news of Jesus Christ. I pray that you guys have a great rest of your week. I will see you next Tuesday.